The economy. It's not going well, is it? No, the United Kingdom has had its growth expectations downgraded from what the ONS decided it would be last year. No longer are we growing at 2%. International forecasts say we're going to be bumbling on at closer to 1.5% growth. Now, when you take into account population growth, we're looking at per capita decline in our economy. Yes, it's pretty clear that the UK has been bumbling along with negligible growth for quite some time. And by many metrics, things got a little bit worse over the last 6 months this government has been in office. Business confidence down, consumer confidence down, employment down. So it's no wonder that this week we're expecting a reset from the Chancellor. Although she won't call it a relaunch, a reset, or even a rebranding. No, she says this was the plan all along. But is that really the case? Well, my name's Tom Harwood, and this is the GB News Originals series. This week, Rachel Reeves will announce that she's going further and faster in the name of growth. And it's little surprise that she needs to say this. Growth has been sclerotic. Indeed, all the economic indicators have been flashing red for the Chancellor for quite some time. Borrowing costs for the government have been going up. That meant that in December this year, or indeed last year, 10 billion extra pounds were borrowed than the previous December of the last year. That was an almost doubling of the amount that was borrowed on a month-by-month basis. An extraordinary figure for a Chancellor who says she wants to fill in a black hole left by the previous government. Well, instead, it looks like by any metric those black holes got bigger. So of course the Chancellor needs to look for growth. This week she's been meeting with CEOs of some of the largest companies in the UK, asking their thoughts on how to get things growing again, on how to fix the mess of the UK economy. I'm sure everyone's felt it, the way that the prices have risen, wages haven't kept pace, and everything just seems a bit down in the dumps. Part of this, of course, has been the way in which the Chancellor herself has been speaking for the last 6 months. Ever since the election, it was dour, doom and gloom. Things were ever so much worse than she was expecting. The state of the UK economy was in the dumps, and in many ways, the Chancellor spoke down the UK economy. Well, are we seeing the most remarkable U-turn now? The Chancellor has, well, in the last week or two, started to talk up the UK economy, say the UK is a good place to do business. Speaking to one Sunday newspaper at the start of this week, the Chancellor seemed to hint she wanted to learn from Donald Trump in terms of his boosterism speak about the economy. Well, could Rachel Reeves be turning into the UK's Donald Trump? I don't think anyone would go that far, but it's certainly true that the Chancellor wants to learn a little bit from what's happening in the United States. Could we see a Doge style, that's the Department of Government Efficiency recently established by executive order in the United States, could we see a Doge style stripping back of red tape in the UK? We won't have long to find out. But certainly speaking to CEOs this week, it looks like the Chancellor wants to learn from what they had to say. It might not be pretty hearing though, because of course we saw the costs of employing people, particularly employing people on low wages, rise and rise as a result of the budget. Yes, not just the minimum wage rising up and up, but also those national insurance contributions for employers, becoming so much more expensive to hire people on low incomes. And guess what? Those people on low incomes don't see any of the extra money that those businesses are paying because it goes straight to the Treasury. It's a sorry situation, but there could be worse coming. Far from the indication that the Chancellor wants to cut red tape, 150 pages of red tape could be about to descend upon businesses in what the Chancellor and the Deputy Prime Minister, Angela Rayner, are describing as a generational contract for workers' rights. But where many employers hear the words workers' rights, they see on paper it turns out to be more red tape for businesses and potentially just stronger rights for unions, less individual rights for individual employees. That one still hasn't quite been worked out. But one man who is particularly worried about what's coming and doesn't see a lot of sunshine between the dark clouds of the UK economy is the chairman of Gales Bakery, Luke Johnson. I spoke to him a little bit earlier today to get his outlook for the UK economy and how his successful business is faring. Luke, you're a successful businessman. What do you make of really the first 6 or 7 months that this government has overseen in the British economy? What's gone right? What's gone wrong?
As far as I'm aware, nothing has gone right, and almost everything they've done has gone wrong. I think they are a disaster. I would accept they inherited a pretty awful set of circumstances. Post-war high levels of tax and debt, much higher interest rates than we've experienced before. There were many of the elements that could lead to a recession. I'm now convinced there will be a recession in 2025. We've probably already entered one. I think the mood amongst the entrepreneurs and investors I speak about this country is more depressing than I can remember in 40 years in business.
But what about, but Keir Starmer set it up and told us that things would get worse before they get better. So do you not feel that there's a way that, even though they've talked about the £22 billion black hole, which is the thing they're trying to fill, is there a feeling that things will get worse, but then there is an upshot to this?
Well, obviously all economies go in cycles, and most recessions only last 18 months, so probably in 26 things will improve. But meantime, we've got to get there. And unquestionably unemployment is rising. Investment in this country is faltering. And the sentiment, which is all important, the level of confidence, is falling. And there is this stark comparison now with America, where it's utterly clear that the new administration there is full of optimism and confidence. And so they will unquestionably boost investment, they will boost employment, they will cheer on the entrepreneurs and enterprise. Meantime, this government have in front of us the Employment Rights Bill, 150 pages of additional red tape placed on businesses. That's fine for big companies to cope with, but small, medium-sized businesses that don't necessarily have large HR departments, 150 pages of extra regulation is not going to encourage them to create jobs. And so, we will see a decline in work. We will see a decline in taxes as a consequence. This government will not meet their expectations for growth. And so the risk is we get into a vicious spiral of a weak currency, which means we import inflation. We can't lower interest rates because of that. We then have to put up more taxes because the tax take is not what was expected. And this government, I think, have no appetite to do what's necessary.
Well, we heard it there, didn't we? Employment costs, energy costs, all sorts of different burdens placed on business, making it harder to do business and harder to grow than it otherwise needs be. There's a lot to think about here. There's a lot for the government to mull over and chew over. And as this week they're expected to approve a few more airport runways, certainly positive for growth, will it be enough? Or will they need to go further? Will they need to halt the big union demands for this 150-page red tape bonanza that could be coming down the line and being thrown at businesses, particularly small businesses, in the United Kingdom? Might things be getting worse rather than better? All big questions to consider, but we're going to be following all the twists and turns here on the GB News original series, so be sure to subscribe.